Hey guys, how you doing? Today we're going to take a close look at the brand new Apple Watch SE 3, and more specifically, we're going to compare the two different sizes that Apple offers, the smaller 40mm one and the larger 44mm model. Now, on paper the difference doesn't look huge, but once you actually put them on your wrist, it becomes a much more important decision than you would expect. So in this video, I will show you how both versions look on and off wrist. We will run through all of the key specs and the prices, and at the end I will share my personal recommendation based on my wrist size, which is 19 centimeters. By the way, like always, you will find all of the links to the smartwatches down below in the description. First, let's get into the design and the specs, because that part is the same no matter which version you buy. Both models use Apple's S10 processor, the same one that powers the Series 11. And they are running on watchOS 26. That means you get the exact same apps, health and fitness tracking, notifications, Apple Pay, and everything else across both sizes. The differences are only in the case size, the display dimensions, the weight, and of course how they feel on your wrist. Now, the 40mm SE3 measures 40 by 34 with a thickness of 10.7mm. Its display is 1.57 inches with a resolution of 324 by 394 pixels, giving you about 759 square millimeters of display area. The larger 44mm case measures 44 by 38 by 10.7 millimeters thickness, but the display increases to 1.78 inches at 368 by 448 pixels, which works out to around 977 square millimeters of display area. That's roughly 30% more usable screen. Now, when it comes to the weight, the 40mm aluminum case is 26.4 grams, while the 44mm is 32.9 grams. Now, that 6.5 grams might not sound like much, but you definitely notice the bigger model more on your wrist. The good thing is that both are still very light compared to the titanium Apple Watches, so whichever one you pick, comfort is excellent. Now, Apple also makes the band size specific. The 40mm version comes with a strap for wrists between 130 to 200mm or 150 to 200, while the 44mm works with straps from 140 to 190 and from 160 to 210mm. Right here, you need to know that every version of the SE3 comes with different sizes of small to medium and medium to large straps. Now, both technically fit my 19cm wrist, but the 44mm version with the longer straps just look more proportional and comfortable. Now, on the small band, I'm already at the very last hole. On the 40mm, the smaller straps makes the whole watch feel even smaller and less balanced. On the 44mm version, the wider straps matches the case perfectly and feels more premium overall. Now, one more thing, bands are not cross-compatible between the two sizes, so the band of the 40mm version doesn't fit with the 44mm one. Now let's talk about prices, and Apple keeps it very simple with the SE3. The 40mm version starts at 269 euros here in Germany for the GPS model, and the 44mm starts at 299 euros. If you want GPS plus a cellular, you just have to add 50 euros more for each size. So the difference between the two models is only 30 euros, which is a pretty small jump compared to what you get with the larger display and the bigger wrist presence. Now, placed side by side on the table, the 40mm and the 44mm SE3 look almost identical apart from the obvious size difference. Both have the same digital crown on the right side, the same flat button underneath, and the same aluminum finish. The thickness is identical, and from the back, they're basically the same watch. The real difference only becomes clear once you put them on your wrist. And this is really where it matters. I've been testing both on my 19cm wrist, and for me the 44mm is without a doubt the right choice. It fills out my wrist in a natural way, it looks balanced, and the display feels large enough to comfortably read messages, notifications, and apps without being overwhelming. The proportions just work better. With the 40mm, things are a little bit different. On my wrist, it looks almost toy-like, much too small, and it doesn't give me the same watch-like presence. Yes, it's lighter and more subtle, but at 19cm wrist size, it simply feels lost. When I check myself in the mirror, the 40mm version almost disappeared, while the 44mm stood out in a good way. Not oversized, just properly matched. Now, this isn't about looks either, it's also about how the watch actually feels in daily use. Now, on the 44mm model, swiping through notifications, scrolling with the crown, or just glancing at the watch face feels more natural because the screen has room to breathe. On the 40mm, I found myself squinting or scrolling more often to see the same amount of information. The experience is still smooth, but it feels a little bit cramped. Both models use the same Retina OLED panel with up to 1000 nits of brightness, which is perfectly fine indoors and outdoors. Text and graphics are sharp and clear on both versions, but the extra space on the 44mm makes a noticeable difference. For example, when you get a WhatsApp message or an email, the larger display shows up to 3 more lines of text, meaning less scrolling and quicker reading. Even with Siri search results, I found that the larger model can fit 8 to 9 more words on the screen before cutting off. And I know it doesn't sound like a huge deal, but in daily life it makes notifications feel a lot easier to handle. On the 40mm everything works too, but you are always working with less space. Just as a quick comparison to the Apple Watch Series 11 sizes, on those two watches the difference was not as much, with just about 2 lines and 6 to 8 words of difference. In your system settings the differences aren't that big. Right here you will always see a little bit more on the display, but it doesn't give you an advantage compared to the smaller one. On the weather app you get to see 1 extra day, so instead of 3 days you have 4 days. In the contacts book you see 1 more contact. In the App Store you see a little bit more, but everything else is more or less the same, like the timer, your alarm, calendar, and all of your health apps. So once again, the biggest difference are the messages. So here's my personal recommendation. If you got a wrist size below 16 centimeters, then the smaller one might actually be a better fit. It will look subtle, lightweight, and well proportioned. But if your wrist is 17 centimeters or above, definitely go with the larger one. And especially if you are like me with a 19 centimeter wrist, I can tell you straight up, the smaller version is simply too small. The big one is the only one that looks and feels right, and it makes the Apple Watch SE 3 more practical and more enjoyable to use. So to sum everything up, both versions of the Apple Watch SE 3 give you the same performance, the same features, and also the same integration with the iPhone. The difference is all about comfort, wrist presence, and readability. The larger one gives you more space, better proportions, and a more balanced fit on medium to large wrists. The smaller one keeps things ultra light and compact, but on a 19 centimeter wrist like mine, it's simply too small. And guys, that's already it for today, so I guess I will see you in the next one. Peace.